Good morning, this is the Renee Studio. So I'm in a Renaissance fair group, and somebody asked for a pattern and nobody could find the pattern, and one of my favorite things to do is figure out how to make things into patterns, even though I have no experience with actual software to do so. So the pattern's here in the lower right. It's not the coat, but the chemise under the coat, and the person wanted to know how to make it. So I can't set this down. Like, I can't focus at work, I can't focus for painting. All I can think of is how to make this thing. So there are two basic ways you could go about making this pattern. First off, what you need to do is you need to measure, and we're going to do it on Dolly here. We're going to measure the distance between the two shoulders. So the outside the shoulder to the outside the shoulder, and hers is 3 centimeters. No, 13 centimeters. So we have and so basically what you want to do is the panel that goes here and the panel that goes here that come this way should be 2 of these. So for her it's going to be 2 13 centimeter panels, and then this should attach there, and then it's unclear how long it goes, but it's at least not as long as the coat, and the coat ends mid-thigh, so we're going to say it ends regular chemise length right about there. And so it's gathered here, and then it has those bell sleeves. We're going to remember that it's gathered here, and then we're going to have sleeve attachments. Now, I don't know the historical accuracy of this pattern or anything, but I'm told the outer coat is called a Turkish coat. So we would want to make sure, I mean, if you're going for a Renaissance festival, then it doesn't matter. Do it however you like. If it's for a reenactment, you're going to want it to be historically accurate. That part is up to you. I can't show you where this pattern is because I have not even looked for it myself. However, I can tell you that these two panels should measure up from the apex of the shoulder to the apex of the shoulder. So each of these should be 13 centimeters wide for Dolly here. And the length should be, I'm going to measure from the shoulder to there. So hers is going to be 20 centimeters. Now for the back, it's up to the person making it if they want the back to match the front, or they want the back to have a regular collar. Now the pros of this is if they ever take off their coat, they would have this pretty pattern on the back. It would be more comfortable. Maybe the pattern would be easier this way. However, when they're wearing the pattern, the issue will be that if it's made like this on the back as well as the front, it may slide down the shoulders, and so you may want to pin it to the coat to keep it in place. Whereas if you had a back that was made like a shirt, this would hold the fabric in the front in place. The second part of construction is once you have made this, you're going to put a string where you want the pattern, and this depends on your body size and how you want it to be done. You can either wrap the string around your waist to gather it in, or you can wrap it on an empire. It does not matter because a coat is going over it. You're going to wrap this all the way around to cinch it in to keep the chemise in place. You can forego this actually it'll just be harder to keep the chemise where you want it to stay. It'll be harder to keep these gathers over the bust area where they need to be. A third note is that if you have, say, hips, a belly, or a bust that is larger than your shoulder width, so make sure you measure here, here, and here, you're going to want to make sure these panels are that width. So the measurement would be half of your circumference. If this makes sense. So you want to take your widest point, and for most people that is our shoulders, and it's going to be half of your circumference. So circumference would be measuring all the way around the back and the front. Easier way to do it is just pull the fabric from here to here, and that's how you know how to cut it. Give yourself at least 1/2 inch on each seam for ease, and for, of course, seaming it. So this would be 13 centimeters, and for her we would do 13 plus 2 cm, because we're doing it so small. I believe that'll work, but for human you'd want to do inches. So yeah, we're only going to do 1 cm seam because it's such a small doll. For human, whether or not you measure in cm or inches, you're still going to need about 1 inch or 1/2 inch on each side to do the seams. That works out about to 2.5 centimeters. Either way you do the math. So you're going to want 1/2 centimeter on each of these seam lines, front and back. That is to make sure you have enough material to go through after you do this. You also want to make sure that half your circumference is going to be plus at least 1 inch of ease. If your waist measurement or bust measurement or hip measurement is larger than your shoulder, because you want to make sure this goes up appropriately. So it shouldn't matter that much though. So we're going to get on with this pattern. I'm going to explain how to first do this back and front, and then I'm going to show how to do this one back and front. My nails aren't dirty. I've been doing a lot of cooking, so they're stained. Just to let you know, because it looks gross to me, but I understand it's food stains. So we're going to start. So we have Dolly here. We're going to make Dolly some clothes. I've had Dolly for probably 5 or 6 years. And I got her at Joann's half price, so she was like $3 something. I don't know how much Dollies are now, but if you want to try to make patterns and don't want to waste a lot of fabric, you get yourself a doll, like a actual sewing doll, so you can pin to her and whatnot, and make your patterns. So we're going to start out with this pattern, and I want to talk about fabric for a moment. So ideally you'd want to get some lightweight linen or handkerchief weight linen, because that's going to be best. It's going to keep you the coolest at a Ren Fair. But lightweight gauzy cotton will also work. But for the purposes of making a mock-up, you're just going to use some any old calico you have. Calico being muslin in the United States, which I'm in the United States, but most of the people I sew with or talk with are not. So anyway, we're going to just cut this fabric. This is a towel, a kitchen towel, but you're going to use actual fabric. And see, it's already seamed on one edge, and I'm just going to take advantage of that as my bottom seam and see how that goes. So we have 13 centimeters plus 1 centimeter, so 14 centimeters by 22 centimeters. So if you catch that, I'm adding a centimeter for my doll on each seam edge in order to sew it. So we're clear. And there's my ruler. So we're going to measure up from here, and since this is already seamed, I'm just going to leave that and measure from that upward. So we said 13, 20, so 22, that's going to be right here. Tombow works better. And then we're going to make 13. Alrighty. And so if you do want to actually keep this, you can also flare out the edges for more space, or you can make, I forget what it's called, a panel to put in there. Either way works for you. But this should work just fine. So we are going to get our scissors. And we are going to make sure this is 13. Wait, not 13. So it's going to be 15. So we have that patternese. And 15. You notice I'm not cutting, writing the thing on all the material. And I'll show you why in a second. Because when you're cutting rectangles, it's just really easy just to cut the material a different way. I've been in bed sick all day, but I literally couldn't get back to sleep because this wouldn't get off my mind. So we're just going to put this here. Line up the edges as best we can. And the nice thing about older patterns is they seem to be very forgiving. Like, you know, when you're cutting and you don't cut it quite perfectly, no one really notices. We said we needed 3 panels. Before we try this panel, we're going to make sure this panel fits her back measurement, and it does. See, it comes all the way to the sides. So we'll have plenty of fabric for the back if we create 4 more of these. However, if you are creating one where you have one back panel because you're creating like a shirt on the back and then gathering only the front, you're going to want to widen this by a little bit, because you're going to want at least another little bit of ease. And you can do this either by flaring it out or by cutting more inches. That's up to you. But for this pattern, the first pattern, we need 4. Like I said, it doesn't need to be perfect because these older patterns are very forgiving, especially when it comes to undergarments. Now, I don't have a pattern for the sleeve. I wish I did. I'm going to do it the best I can. But I want to say it's a typical, it looks like it's a typical medieval sleeve where it's bigger at the bottom and not at the top. However, you could either get a pattern for a sleeve and do a modern sleeve inset, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute, or you could do the other way. So looks like that's too small. Gosh darn it. Too bad that's too small. Like, if we won't go around her hand, I can't put it on her, obviously. So I'm just going to cut this off here so we don't have this extra in our way. Now we need to set this aside, and I would say just keep cutting this size for the sleeve. Obviously we don't need a seam right there, or we're actually going to go this way so that we have that seam right there. I'm just going to cut 2 of these for sleeves, and then we'll figure them out later, because we really can't see the upper shoulder of that sleeve, so we don't know how it fits into the pattern, whether or not there's going to be an armpit gore or not, or it's going to be connected and pieced in modernly, and that part is really up to you. But the way I'm going to do it is the way I would do it if I were trying to fit this to myself, and I would go ahead and cut out the piece of fabric I need, and then I would cut out 2 1-inch gores. I don't know why I'm doing that there when I could do that here. I'm going to cut out alrighty. So I am going to grab my pins, and we are going to pin this to Dolly, and this is why we want Dolly to have pins. Well, these are the ones that go up the front panel, and there's 2 ways you could gather these. You could put a string through here and then pull them, but for the purpose of this we're just going to do this so we can see how it looks on the doll before we commit. So it's going to be like that. And let's just do really big pins. There we go. Like that. And I could have gone a little longer on that. I think I didn't leave the E's in there. So you're going to want to put this where you want it to fall on your shoulder, and then do the gathers. And I'll show you how to do the gathers in a moment when we sew this. Or you can, take the video out here how you want it and happy sewing. That's totally up to you. Then once you have it gathered, you're going to pull this here, then you're going to pull it to where you want it on her chest, on your chest. And that's where you're going to start your center seam. See? And then you're going to do the same thing for the back. Right now it's looking very Roman, so, it is what it is. Then obviously we want to catch this farther up the back, so that way it, but you're going to want to pin this and try it on, and pin this and try it on until you get the tension correct on your back. So I would recommend doing a stay stitch down each of these seam lines so you don't rip, tear, or have frayed edges as well. So now that we got that far, we are going to put our arms up and figure out where your arm gore is going to be. And as you see, we pinch that here so that the tighter you go to your arm, the better you're going to have arm movement. And so you could do that way and then cut in and piece the arm, or you could add a armpit gore right here, which would be more period and probably more comfortable. So that would go like that. I'm sure you can find pretty few videos. I'll link some in the description below for you to be able to inset this. As far as the sleeve goes, you could easily drape it. Now that we have this nice piece, and bring it around, and you can either cut off this excess so it's nice and tight against your arm the way you want it, or my preferred way would be to leave the gather there and gather it against the arm, like so you have plenty of arm space. Then once you get it where you want it, you can obviously then cut the bell shape you want and seam it. I'll find a video for that as well because I don't want this video to go too long. So I'm going to pause here and I'm going to oh yeah, sorry. It is like 1:27 in the morning and I'm doing this because I can't sleep until I got it done. The other thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to figure out where you want that drawstring around, or you don't even have to do this. You could actually just put a cord around your waist to cinch it in and then bring the gathers up where you want them on your bust like that. Or you could seam this, you could do this gather here like this, bring it forward and sew it together, or you can just insert a drawstring from here forward on each side, and then when you wear it you pull that tight to cinch it in, which would even be more helpful if you did the back the second way. And let me show you. So if you did the back as a shirt where you had an actual collar, so you would still have enough space to sew that. So you're just going to want to bring up the back pattern to where it matches here, sew it up the sides, and then bring it down and sew it to that. So let's real quick go over how a couple of ways how you could do the gathers at the shoulders. So if you're doing it the way you had this gathered there, you could easily sew these two pieces together. The back and front panel. Just sew it together. You want it sewn inside out, not right side out. Actually, really easily, if you sewed it right side out to right side out like that, you sew this, and then you did a French seam, you could easily put a string through there and then gather it. The other way is to hand sew a string through there and then pull them. I'm not a fan because I can never get that to work. The strings always break on me. So I'm going to pause this here while I do it my method way, and I will then come back and show you. Alrighty, we are back. So I have French seamed these two, as you can see here, and so we have these two panels, front and back. So we are going to do the shoulder gather. Just open this up. Now I would recommend, so that you can adjust this, to leave the string in there and not sew this closed. So how to do that is, and I cut it wrong the first time, so forgive me. Oh, actually no, I didn't. So once you get so far with one way, you're just going to pull it back through. It's going to be easier if I just use this. So now you have a gather. And I know this looks chunky, but keep in mind this is on Dolly with a big piece of fabric from her perspective. So for right now you can just tie this off somehow. My brain's not functioning since it is almost 2 a.m. so forgive me for that. But yeah, what you want to do is sew that right there. So let me just take a tack with the sewing machine. And then promptly lose it when I get over here. I keep dropping the string and not pulling it through the garment properly, so forgive me for the time I'm taking right now to get this string in here properly. So now you can see I successfully got that strung in there on that end. And we're going to clip these. Now we can easily pull that like that and pull it tight. Pull it right side out, and there you have your gathered shoulder. Okay. And we're going to quickly do the other end. We're going to take this to our sewing machine. And of course I sucked those in there. At least, yeah, it's not perfectly sewed at this end, so I'm kind of able to bring the string back out. Another way to do this would be to make a channel on either piece of fabric and then pull it tight. And for the purpose of this section of sewing, we're going to get that all the way on the shoulder properly, the way where we want it. And make a pin. Then we're going to take it here, and we're going to imagine her bosom is around there, right about there. So we are going to mark it with something that it erases later. This is disappearing ink, so it'll not show later. And we're going to imagine in the back where the back panel lays, it's going to be higher up. And now we are going to take this to the sewing machine, and I'm going to pause because I am going to seam, put a hem from here to here on the inner side, and then I'm going to put a seam all the way down the front. So I'm going to pause the video